So I see, hi everyone, this is James from Begin. I see that we have 56 participants online and it is currently growing. We want to say thank you for coming to our Her Story Professional Women of Color Reflect on Their Journey virtual panel. We're excited to begin the program in just a few seconds. If you're in the chat, let me know if you can hear me. I think you can hear me. I tested it out. If not, let me know. So we're going to just begin in a few seconds. So, in the interest of time, we're going to say, everybody, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for our special March members meeting. Before we dive into her story, we would like to briefly touch on the successful Black History Month event that we hosted last month. We've received nothing but positive feedback. We want to thank you to all Begin members for your feedback, support, and your participation with Black History Month cultural celebration. And we're going to discuss more about the event at our next members
Do you want to
meeting.
change the name?
Next meeting. Um, Today we celebrate Women's History Month. Go ahead, Robin. Do you want to go ahead? You're on now, so you can go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Although it says Nancy Cotto, it's Robin Roland. um, for those of you who may not know, I am new members. I am the co-lead of the Black Employees for Black Employees Group for Inclusion and Networking. And welcome and thank you for joining us for our special March members meeting. And before we, I believe, James, you talked about Black History Month for a moment. Okay,
I
so,
did.
well, thank you for joining us for our special meeting today. So today we celebrate Women's History Month, originally rooted in the early 20th century, originally rooted in the early 20th century observation of International Women's History Day on March 8th. In 1981, the United States established National Women's History Week. And by 1987, this recognition extended to the entire month of March. Since then, Women's History Month has evolved into a global celebration of women's social, economic, cultural, and political achievements, serving as a powerful call to action for gender equality. In the spirit of commemorating this important occasion, Begin invites you on a journey into the inspiring narrative of four accomplished women of color at MTA. Her story, Professional Women of Color, reflects on their journey, provides a unique opportunity to delve into the professional stories that have shaped the unique career paths of our esteemed panelists. Our moderator will guide us through what promises to be a thought-provoking discussion, unveiling the achievements, obstacles, and moments of empowerment that have shaped the journeys of these inspiring women. So I believe now we have our esteemed moderator. Janice?
I am going to hand over to President Rinaldi, who is going to share a few words with everyone. President Rinaldi.
Thank you so much. Whoops.
Thank you so much. I'm really thrilled to be here today. I think you all know I'm the president of Metro North Railroad, but I'm also really proud, along with Shanifa, to be the executive sponsor of Begin. And as James and Robin just indicated, we had a really, fantastic Black History Month event a couple of weeks back. And one of the things I said in my remarks at that event hold true here, which is that women's history is being written every day here at the MTA. So I'm the president of Metro North Railroad, but I'm not the only female agency president. Kathy Sheridan is an agency president as well at B&T, and she's not the first women president of B&T. Susan Kupperman was a president of B&T before her. So there are lots of women who've distinguished themselves at the leadership of this organization over the course of the last 30, 40 years. My boss at Long Island Railroad, Helena Williams, was the first female president of Long Island Railroad. So there is leadership happening, and women are participating more and more in critical decisions across this industry and across this agency. And I'm really thrilled to be introducing a panel that consists of some of those women. They've all distinguished themselves in a major way, major contributors, major leadership, and also inspiring all of those who work here by their journey and by the work that they do every day. So I'm going to hand it back over to James, I think, to introduce our moderator, who's going to introduce the panelists and get this great discussion going. Thank you so much.
Yes, and we also want to say thank you, Kathy. You're a trailblazer yourself as being the first woman president of Metro North. And I think we can also add now the first woman to lead two railroad commuter agencies, Long Island Railroad and Metro North. So we thank you to this Women's History Month. I'm going to flip it over to Janice, our moderator.
Thank you so much, James. Thank you, President Rinaldi. Absolutely a pleasure. So good afternoon, everyone. As shared by Robin and James, my name is Janice McKenzie. I'll be your moderator this afternoon. I must say before we get started, for me, it's an absolute pleasure to be a part of MTA Begin. This moment, we're going to highlight these monumental women. I tell you, you're not ready. Get ready, because this is going to be an absolute treat. So just for the run of show, first, I'll move forward by introducing the panelists in no particular order, and then I'll open the floor to the panelists to give them an opportunity, 2 to 3 minutes, to introduce themselves. Then I will move to the questions, giving panelists an opportunity to respond. Please, audience, feel free to put your comments, your questions, your kudos in the chat. When this portion of the program is concluded, I will hand the program back over to the fabulous Robin and James, who will share the questions and that you have added in the chat, and giving the panelists an opportunity to respond directly to your questions. Okay, if you're ready, panelists, are you ready? I will begin. Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Begin Her Story. On our panel today, Begin welcomes the esteemed Lourdes Zapata, Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer. Good morning, good afternoon, Lourdes. I will move to a treasure, not a hidden treasure, the Chief Labor and Employee Relations Officer, Anita Miller. Good afternoon, Ms. Miller. We welcome also the acclaimed and respected General Counsel of the MTA, Paige Graves. Fourthly, our strategic, fierce, yet courteous Chief Customer Officer, Shanifa Riera. And lastly, but definitely not least, my direct leader, the innovative Chief Administrative Officer, Lizette Camillo. Good afternoon. Okay, I will start with Lourdes. Can you please just introduce yourself to the panel?
Sure. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Really my pleasure to be here. I am the MTA's Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer. Ooh, I said inclusion officer. Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer. And come April 1st, I will be here for 6 months at the MTA. I can't believe that it's already been almost 6 months that I've been here. It has been a real pleasure to get to know the MTA and its various departments and everything that it's done, and everything that it does. In terms of the work for the Chief Diversity, leading the Division of Diversity and Civil Rights, we accept, review, and investigate complaints around Title VI and Title VII, complaints for our employees as well as our customer base. We also implement, deliver, and monitor a very aggressive program to engage minority and women-owned businesses in MTA contracting opportunities. We do business development. We also help on the compliance side and get DBE certification for our firms. So it's a very active group. We are a team of about 80 that I'm very, very honored to work with and lead. And I'm just incredibly humbled to share the panel today with these amazing women. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Zapata. I'll move on over to Paige Graves.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Paige Graves. I am the General Counsel for the MTA, and what that means is that I deal with all legal issues, legal and policy issues involving the MTA, which includes headquarters and all of the MTA's affiliate and subsidiaries. That's transit, Metro North, Long Island Railroad, bridges and tunnels, etc. So it's a lot. I have a department of about 300 people, which includes lawyers and staff, and they do amazing work trying to deal with all of the issues that pop up. I also directly advise the chairman in a lot of his initiatives and policy work, as well as advising the executive leadership. So I'm really happy to be here. I should just add, I've been with the MTA family for 12 years, started at New York City Transit, then was general counsel of MTA Bus, then general counsel of Long Island Railroad, and then now I sit here. So I had my hands in a little bit of everything. So again, happy to be here, happy to be on this panel with these great women who I deal with on a daily basis. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Next, Lisette.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for the invitation to speak today and to participate along with these amazing panelists. So as Chief Administrative Officer, I have a number of departments that report up to me, the People Department, IT, procurement. I'm also wearing an acting Chief Procurement hat, real estate and internal communications. All comprise my portfolio. I've been here for a little over 2 years. Shanifa and I started on the same day, so she's my anniversary buddy. And previous to the MTA, I spent the bulk of my career with the city. But being here at the MTA as a life, born and raised New Yorker, it's been such a treat to work within an organization that was very much a part of my life since birth, basically. So it's been a really fun and challenging experience, given all the problems that we're working together to solve. We work together with everyone on the panel, with every agency, to really support and help deliver on strategic, critical projects, but also to make sure that this organization functions better every day. And I think that in the past 2 years, we've been able to make some strides in helping along all of those things. So thank you again, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next, we'll move on to Shanifa.
Thanks, Janice, and good afternoon, everyone. Janice, that was a really good introduction, and I do think that, even the little title description that you gave to all of these amazing panelists, which is so spot on, and that is one of the great benefits of being here at the MTA, that I really get to work and just be a student to many of my co-panelists, which I go to a lot of them for advice and just getting feedback and guidance. So it is great to be here and be part of this conversation. So as a chief customer officer, there are many things that encompass that. I mean, I think the most way to sort of sum it up is always making sure that the customer's interest is at the center of every business decision or just the day-to-day that we do here at the MTA. And the way that we sort of push and promote that out is through our digital presence, whether it's social media or website. We push out, and also to deal with the lovely incoming from our Twitter and other social media followers, the creative side, whether it's, posters or different creative items to just sort of highlight internally and externally all the great work that we're doing, service notification, as we know, at any given moment, service changes can happen. So really making sure that we are on top of that proactively, as well as reactively. And of course, the bread and butter customer complaints and feedback and recommendations. So that is one aspect. The other aspect, initially my intended job that I came in as senior advisor to the chairman, really working with the focus area of communication and policy, really working closely with him and other members of the team to sort of strategize on, the MTA priorities, making sure we are, building and maintaining relationships externally, and going to the trusted watering holes and sitting down with key leaders, letting them know, what we're doing. So that is just a mini summary of some of the tasks and functions that I do here at the MTA.
We understand you're very busy. Thank you so much. And now, Anita Miller.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much to the Begin team for extending this opportunity to be with my esteemed colleagues. I think, as someone already said, we all interact probably daily on any number of issues and challenges that the MTA is involved with. So it's really a true privilege and an honor. I come from a long line of civil servants. I've got just about 21 years here with the MTA family, starting out in transit as a hearing officer. I also was over at the Housing Authority for a bit, and then was drafted back here. And it's just been an exciting and rewarding opportunity on almost every day. Responsible also for providing advice in the area of labor relations to the chair, to the board, to various executive leaders. We lead a team of about approximately 100 employees across enterprise-wide. We're a little under count right now, so we're trying to get that number a little higher to be able to service all of the agencies. But have an amazing labor relations team. I equate us to a tugboat, right? We're relatively small compared to some other departments, but we really move a lot of weight. And that's what's necessary when you are one of the many gears of this big organization that's primary goal is to move millions of people to and from their point of destination safely every day. And so we see ourselves as just one small gear in a very big machine. So thank you for being here and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much, Anita. I am going to start the questions, and I think every one of you kind of shared a little bit about your journey and path to the seat, except Lisette. So Lisette, I'm going to go to you with this very first question. Can you tell us about your journey and how you entered the world of transportation?
Well, I've only been in the world of transportation for 2 years, so it was relatively recent entering. I had, like I said previously, I spent the majority of my professional career with New York City government, bouncing around different agencies and really, really understanding and learning how a very complicated entity functions. So 50 agencies, hundreds of thousands of employees. And I started out as a lawyer for the city council, went over to the mayor's office of contract services, and then I was appointed to run the Department of Citywide Administrative Services, which provides civil service management, fleet management, procurement management, real estate services management, and energy management for New York City. And as the previous administration was coming to a close, and I was thinking of next steps since I was appointed, and there was no, it was a good moment to transition. There was an opportunity at the MTA to be the chief administrative officer here, which had a lot of overlap with what I was doing at my previous agency, HR, procurement. There's an element of fleet, so administrative services generally. It was a perfect, I think it was a perfectly aligned as I was looking for something, again, in the public sector. I really get a lot of joy, and it's very rewarding to me to work for an entity that serves everyone. I think that that has been the common theme across all of my jobs. Even, I think before I graduated high school, I think I've always been public service oriented, and seeing as how transit was such an important part of my experience growing up in New York. Again, being able to contribute to an organization that really does serve everyone in New York City, and now more broadly with the railroads. I really thought that that would be a great way to be able to continue serving an organization that serves everyone. And so I quickly thought it was a wonderful opportunity, and I'm so thankful that I did, because working here, working alongside all of my colleagues, not only just the ones on the panel, but everyone that I interact with day to day, certainly learning the industry it's like learning a new language, learning a new industry. That's been a big learning stretch for me, but I think it's great to be able to diversify, and get smarter on things that that you didn't think about before. But it's been, I guess, I kind of build on what I've learned in my previous jobs and bring it here. And here I'm continuing to learn, expand, and grow. So that's a little bit about my background.
Thank you so much. I think every one of us can know it's a skill to transition, right? And to be flexible in that. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm going to pose my next question to Paige. Paige, there are a few sayings. No man is an island, or it takes a village. Who would you describe as your village?
Yeah, it does take a village to pretty much do a little bit of everything that we do. So I guess I would answer that as I think I have two villages. I would put it in two buckets, sort of the professional and then a personal. So I will say the professional, it will be these women on this panel. So any given time, unfortunately, Lourdes is on a different floor, but Lisette and Shanifa and Anita are on the same floor as me. So any given time, I may get up out of my seat, walk down the hall, and most times I'm running into each one, it's in line, their office, and just asking questions about what do I do in this situation, or you give me advice on this, or can I talk through a matter with you? And so I do consider them as, and some others, as being part of sort of my professional village, because when it comes to things at the MTA, only folks at the MTA can really deal with and guide you on issues at the MTA. Then, I mentioned a personal village. I do have great set of, since this is her story, I will focus on women, a great set of women, professional women outside of the MTA in my personal life that I lean on and talk to about, how do you be an executive and a wife and a mother, and having to balance, that work life, balance. How do you sort of just keep sane in a very evolving workforce and world, because there's a lot of stuff going on in the world that you have to sort of keep keep yourself focused on, the things that you have to do, not only at work and at home. So I would say my village I have 2 villages, and it's important to have that.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to pose the next question to both Lourdes and Anita. What has been your biggest act of courage in your professional career? And I'll start with Lourdes.
So, back in 2019, I was working for the governor's office. So before I came to the MTA, I served both as the New York State Director of MWBE programs, as well as having been appointed Chief Diversity Officer for the state of New York under the previous administration. And in 2019, I was approached by board members of a nonprofit organization that I used to work at, based out of the South Bronx, called Sobro. And I am a South Bronx girl myself, and it is an economic development organization. That Sobro is an economic development organization that does real estate development, youth and workforce development, as well as business services. And I had some board members approach me to see whether I would be interested in taking on the leadership role of that organization, becoming the president of a local nonprofit economic development organization. I had never done that before. I was certainly familiar with Sobro as an organization because I had worked there in the past. And so I was very familiar with what they did. But it was certainly a huge step for me to leave the relative safety and comfort of state service, where you are a state employee and you have your pension and you know where kind of where everything is going next, at least from an administrative perspective, and a position that I was comfortable with, and colleagues that I knew and really cared for personally and professionally, to take on the leadership of a $20 million organization and 200 employees and become the person that was responsible for its success. And I did a lot of soul searching on whether that was what I wanted to do. Incredibly scared out of my wits to make sure that I can get it done. And unbeknownst to me, 5 months after I started there, COVID would hit. So no one could anticipate that and all of the challenges that COVID brought, both administratively and financially, and just, dealing with that, with everything that brought to us as a community. I don't know if I had known that was coming, I would have taken the job. But I'm really proud that I took that step, that I was terrified of taking on that job. But yet I did it anyway, because it was something that I had always aspired to do. And it was still the work was still very tied to my passion and professionally where I had seen my professional life going, which was continuing in service to my community in the broadest sense of the word, people of color, and working with women, but also working with the South Bronx, which is where I was born and raised. And so it was very much a homecoming back to me to be able to go back to Sobro. So it's something that I'm really proud of, that I took that opportunity.
Excellent. As one of our bus drivers would say, if you're from the boogie down Bronx, you're never terrified. So excellent. Thank you so much.
True that.
Anita, thank you.
Well, I would say similar in that it dealt with a transition from where I was at to where I would end up going, and what opportunities it eventually provided for me. I was transit. I was, I think, either a hearing officer or a labor attorney at the time. I was really very naive in that I didn't know how the world works, so that, people that know you, who might think you're a good fit for another opportunity, may float your name, and they don't always necessarily give you a heads up. So I received a cold call about an assistant chief position over at another city agency. And, you know, I said, well, no harm in going to check it out. But as things really started to move, I said, wow, you know, you know, it was very challenging here, but I enjoyed my colleagues. I kind of knew the lay of the land. You know, you kind of get into a routine. You know, we would work late, but, you know, you could call down the hall and say, hey, you know, we're still here. I don't feel like going home and cook. You want to grab something after work? Sure, no problem. And then you would probably still be talking about cases. So, you know what you know. And as the opportunity now really presented itself, I only had one person who I felt like I could let know that, right? Because you also have to kind of keep that kind of information. Because what if it doesn't go anywhere, right? You don't want something out prematurely. And the person said, well, they're going to give an opportunity to manage people. And I said, well, I'm a manager here. And she says, no, she says, they may call you manager, but you're not a manager until you manage people. And I said, well, yeah, it's going to have a couple of, you know, people reporting to me, da, 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 da. And she's, well, you know, I think you really need to kind of think about it. And it was a lateral opportunity. So it wasn't like you were leaving for, you know, more monetary, but it was going to give me something that I didn't have in my portfolio and that I couldn't see, at least in the immediate future, that opportunity rising here, because there were people who were, you know, ahead of me in line, right? They had more seniority. And that's not to say I couldn't have gotten it, but at that point, that was the way you viewed the world. And that was a big, big decision. And I ended up taking that opportunity. It was a major sea change. I can't say that I was particularly, like, within 30 days, I was like, oh my God, what have I done? You know, but I settled down and I made relationships there, and people who kind of, you know, took me under the wing and learned a whole new agency. Ended up getting a promotion there within a relatively short period of time, which was not planned, but people started to move. And then when another opportunity opened up back here, because people had shifted around here, I get a call. Hey, I'm putting together my team. Would you consider coming back? I could have never envisioned that, you know, 2.5 years earlier when I was confronted with a decision as to whether I wanted to leave my comfort zone to take a leap of faith. So I don't know if I would say courage, because I mean, I see so many people doing so many amazing, really, truly courageous things professionally. But for me at that moment in time, yeah, I would put it in that category.
Awesome. They say effective leaders, right? Manage and lead by example. So kudos to you. Kudos to you. Thank you. The next question, I'll pose it to Shanifa and Lizette. Was there a time in your career where you were disappointed and that disappointment catapulted you to your next step or your next level? Shanifa.
Very good question. I mean, I can say that I think sort of what stands out in my mind is perhaps being passed over for a promotional opportunity. And not to say that I didn't feel that I was ready, but it really gave me an opportunity similar to what Paige was talking about. It's like going back to your village and really getting a true assessment, you know, on how, you know, why was I passed over? How am I seen or viewed professionally? You know, what sort of skill set or abilities, you know, that those that I work with feel that I lack, that I'm not positioned, you know, to take on, you know, this role. I mean, and it's Women's History Month, and you know, and what we always have to be cognizant of is like how we respond and react, and taking emotion out of it, because initially, you know, our visceral reaction is to react, and as you know, Lourdes and Paige have alluded to, I am also from the Bronx and try to contain my Bronxness from you know, rearing its ugly head. But I would say, like, again, you know, and I think those opportunities, it's good, because that's how it shapes us. That's how it positions us to be greater. I mean, I think for my you know, own example, like, yes, they brought someone in, and I unfortunately too was asked to train this person. I mean, and I think we all have sort of been there, and you know, and I just use that time as an opportunity to sharpen my craft, really drill down and build on some of the professional development skills that I felt that I had, but maybe there was a better way to sort of showcase that. But still maintaining, your level of professionalism, being collaborative, because again, as women, we don't have that luxury, and especially as women of color, there's a way that, or expectation that we sort of have to comport ourselves. So, showing up to meetings, being not only prepared, but well-versed in various subject matters, even issues that are not within your portfolio, but just sort of being, all-knowing. So that's what I would have to say that, something that, disappointing moment that I use as a catalyst for professional growth.
Awesome. What I heard was lead with facts, not with emotions.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And Lizette.
I think we've all been there, Shanifa, and I think I certainly echo everything that you just mentioned. I think and like I said, I've been there. I'm going to answer it a little bit differently just so that I won't sound repeat basically everything you said. I think that the most challenging part of my professional career came when I was in my old job, and there was a very public, very, very public controversy that kind of exploded in the press. It was a real estate transaction. You can Google it, not fun. But being thrust in the public sphere where people are just, the press in particular kind of were saying not nice things about me, and that was really not fun to experience, and about my colleagues, and really navigating that at such a public in such a public way, and being kind of at the target for a lot of not nice things. That was a really tough thing to navigate just publicly. Like, you do have to train yourself to not react, to be very professional and kind of push forward. But I really leaned on my villages to kind of get through the emotional part, right? You close the door and then you kind of process your thoughts and emotions behind closed doors with people that support, know you, and really kind of build you up and hold you up. But also professionally, right? You sharpen, you roll up your shirt sleeves and you prepare like the Dickens to push through and power through. There were public hearings, there were interviews, there were, a lot of there was a lot of activity to really push things forward and kind of get over that piece. And that was very, it was disappointing to hear, not nice things said and written about you. But you certainly used those things to galvanize yourself and your villages to really kind of block the noise, keep your eye on the prize, and pick at and work through whatever barriers you have to kind of get through to get over. And thankfully it was all what is it? All ends well, all whatever that saying is. Yeah, I can't do that again. So that was the, I think a big disappointment that I think sharpened my resiliency to get through really tough times professionally, which bled into the personal.
Wow, thank you. And they say iron sharpens iron, and controversy can be iron, right? And so it helps all of us to refocus. I've worked for a very great person, a woman who has always said, stay focused. So absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, this question is for Lourdes. I'm sure along your journey, you've heard the person who challenges you to be uncomfortable is the person that has your best interest at heart. On your professional journey, who or what has challenged you the most?
I don't think anybody could challenge me more than me. I am so hard, sometimes too hard, and and trying to prepare for this, right? I think about, you start reflecting on your personal journey and what you can be doing. And I was always, I come from as I think we all likely do, a family of strong women, and who demanded excellence, who demanded that don't let them see you sweat, that will say to you in a professional setting. My mom used to always say, what you can and cannot afford is nobody's business but your own. So it was like, just keep everything internal. You don't let anybody know anything that's going on. And like Liz said, I would have professional disappointments and, drown in a glass of wine, if I could, because I'm so disappointed, and finding myself very often questioning myself. What could I have done better? What can I be doing? I'm very reflective. When I hear someone say something about me, good or bad, I don't react. I'm very mindful. I very much think, if it's good, it's like, okay, let me just remember this so I can continue to do that. And if it's bad, I will ask myself that question. Why is that happening? Is it accurate? Is it not accurate? And just be very upfront with myself and very mindful of it. And certainly I've had the ability to work throughout my life with just some incredible mentors and partners, and mostly women, who have challenged me, write better, speak better, don't let them, you need to sit at the table. And I've asked questions like, are you sure you want me there? And absolutely, you need to sit there and make sure that you're there. So it's the mentors and the champions that we all need, and they're two very different things. But at the end of the day, it's been probably my biggest challenger, my biggest criticizer has been the person in the mirror for me, and just saying, make sure that you're doing this right, because I do carry the weight of myself, just doing the job right for myself, doing it right for my family, because I carry that weight as well. I'm the first generation in my family that went to college. I'm the first generation in my family that are white collar workers instead of blue collar workers. And so you carry all of that with you as you go, and you don't want to disappoint. I'm a mother, I have daughters, I have nieces. I'm very mindful of that representation internally and externally. And so I'm always mindful of that. And then, I'll have the glass of wine after and worry about it.
Thank you so much. I think reflection is very important. Always. Ladies on the panel, can you raise your hand if you think that you also are your biggest critic? Yeah. I think it's a running theme, Lourdes, so we'll be all right. I will, Paige. Knowing what you know now, can you share with us one thing that perhaps you would have changed along your journey?
Nothing, because if you change one thing, it would change the direction of where you end up. And I wouldn't be here today if all of the things that has occurred in my past did not happen. So I have to shout out to the Boogie Down Bronx as well. I grew up in the Bronx, and I went to a private high school in Manhattan, all girls high school, which was predominantly white and wealthy. And it was an eye opener and an experience for me, because for those of you who grew up in the Boogie Down Bronx in the 70s, that not the same demographic. So it's funny. I mentioned this because over the weekend, I actually, I'm now telling you my age, I actually signed up, I registered for our class reunion. And my husband said, "Are you really going back?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, I'm going back because that experience changed my life. That was the first time I was exposed to wealth and things people had that I only saw on television and didn't know that that was real and attainable." So, graduating from high school, I won't go too far back, but graduating from high school, I went to business school. I was going into business because in my mind, you make money by going into business. And I hated it. So I was an accountant. I worked for a big accounting firm, one of the biggest. And I hated it. And I was just like, what am I going to do? I had an accounting degree and a marketing degree. So I thought, oh, I would go into marketing. I'm creative. I can do copyright and do all the stuff that like Shanifa does. That's what I thought I would be able to do, but nobody would hire me because I had an accounting degree. So I was like, I can't stand this. I don't know what to do. Business is not for me. I'm not going to business school. I went to law school. So I literally fell into law school because um, I'm first generation born here. My mom is Jamaican. So everything is, if any of you are from a Caribbean background, everything's about education. So my mom was like, you complain and go back to school. So that's exactly what I did. I went to law school because that was just the only other option. And then from there, it was, starting my legal career. While I was in law school, I interned at a big white shoe law firm because, again, I'm thinking money. And that's primarily because where I came from. And the partner of the firm threw a book at me across the table. And I was like, yeah, no, this is not, again, I'm from the Bronx. I was like, yeah, no, this is not going to work for me. So maybe I don't need to work for a white shoe law firm. And then I went into the public sector and absolutely loved it. And I think Anita was talking about this and Lisette about the idea of helping and making a difference and making an impact to the public and people. So I went into the public sector and kind of didn't look back. So no, I would not change. I know that's a very long winded answer to the question, but I wouldn't change anything. There's a saying that everything happens for a reason, and I live by that.
Excellent. So you're having this Brooklyn girl here have to say, put some respect on the Bronx. So everyone, kudos to the Bronx. Okay, Robin and James, how am I doing on time? Just keep me in line, please.
You're doing great on time. You can
Okay.
ask a few more questions.
Okay, thank you.
You're on mute, Janice.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Anita. Everyone likes when you're agreeable. Everyone likes when you say yes, when things are favorable to them. There are times when you have to, as a leader, set boundaries and say no. And for some, it can be difficult. Can you give us some advice in setting professional boundaries?
So I don't know if you planned that to come to as my former colleague used to call me, the labor guy. That was her, that she always referred to me that. As you can imagine, in this area, you have an opportunity to say no, probably perhaps more than you would like. I think I received one of the best compliments ever many years ago from a union leader who was retiring, and he came by and he was saying bye to everybody, and he said, "Well, I told the guy who's following me that where you're concerned, you'll never be told no more nicely." and that was stuck with me. And I knew what he meant, because one thing that served me well is I can be, forceful and direct, but I think part of it has to do with my upbringing. I was always usually much taller than most of my friends growing up. And my dad, would look outside and let's say, things were getting a little frisky. He'd call me over, and, one thing was like, keep your hands to yourself, learn how to fight back with, here and here. And finding that you sometimes have to, I think it might have been Shanifa or Paige that said, we don't often have the luxury as women and women of color of perhaps confronting a challenge the way our instincts might be so inclined, right? So you have to really hone your communication skills, and particularly when it's with an adversary or someone on the other side. I did a stint in landlord-tenant for a while, and I was working for a nonprofit representing indigent members of, New York and Brooklyn in particular. And a lot of times you were going into court with, your client who, they were behind in their rent, their resources were just not flowing the way they should have been. You're fighting with social services, you're fighting with, they've got medical issues, and now you got to go in and advocate to keep them in their dwelling a little bit longer. And you're dealing with somebody on the side who they were hostile, offensive, sometimes just frustrated because their client is saying, hey, I want this person up. And you had to find a way to communicate with them in a way, because one, you're going to be seeing them every month when you go in with the next client that you have. And you might feel good in that moment, really letting them have it. But at the same time, they've got something you need, which may be more time or something to save your client. So you learned really quickly it wasn't about you. And I was a paralegal then. You learned, hey, it's not about me. I can take the hit, because if it means me getting a little bit more time to save the person I'm here to represent, that's my job. And so that, I think, really also helped hone that skill, so that by the time I got here, and I was really, the stakes are different, the client is different, but what's my main objective? My objective is maybe to keep something from escalating, spiraling out of control, causing more impact that ultimately might impact the rider, right? So that I think is something of learning how to say no and doing it with the tone and response that the moment dictates.
Thank you. Perhaps we'll think about getting you one of those little no buttons, and you just leave it on your desk. And
yeah, I have a little
as
referee
people
that
come
I got.
in.
Somebody gave this to me at one of the grab bags holiday, and it's like a little referee with the little plunger, and
With
that's
the plunger.
feels on most days.
Thank you so much, Anita. Okay, Lisette. Many women in corporate America or in public sector have shared that they have to be overachievers to get the same recognition as counterparts. Can you share if this has occurred with you in your professional journey?
I mean, I definitely think that, at least for me, I've always felt the need to over prepare to feel comfortable. And I think in particular, I think we've heard it before, women of color in particular, I think really have that approach to try and kind of get through and be successful. I don't know if it's, I think it's just both. It's both, I think, part of our personalities, but also I think just the unfortunately kind of the way that the world works, that I think we have to over prepare sometimes to get either recognized as being successful or just to be invited back, right, as we're making our way through. But I think that certainly for me, the anxiety of being in either a meeting or a project, et cetera, for me to feel comfortable, I have to do my homework and feel prepared. And sometimes that can lead me down a rabbit hole of, well, what about this and what about that? Just from my own sense of curiosity and comfort. But I do think that that's something that we have in common.
Thank you. So you are staying ready so you don't have to get ready. All right. Thank you. Shanifa, next one for you. How do you navigate and overcome gender biases or stereotypes or how have you in your professional journey?
I mean, I think, while we have a great complement of women on this screen, I mean, you can sort of ask each and every one of us, especially in the role in our day-to-day function, we're still outnumbered when we sit at a table, in a meeting, and oftentimes we are you know, the representation, whether it's women, women of color, you know, and you can go, you know, on and on and on. I do think, again, it sort of has been spoken on. I think again, we carry this burden of one, you know, first generation, the investment that all of our families and parents and our village, you know, it poured into us to get us to where we are today. That is always at the top of mind, and you know, and you know, doing good in this space, as well as creating opportunities for others. Because I think one thing that you know, has not been mentioned, but we all do it in our collective approach, you know, as we talk among ourselves, like we know it is also our responsibility to bring others, you know, along with that. So, you know, when it comes to, you know, gender sort of gender bias or stereotype, and one of the things that I do is I try to be supportive of my other, you know, the other women, you know, on this call, as well as, you know, those who are not. And I think just like being prepared, like I am all about giving public acknowledgements and praises, you know, for other women, because I think that is something that goes, doesn't go recognized enough. You know, men, you know, don't shy away from self-promoting. But I think as women, we see a task, we attack it, and then we go on to the next, and instead of really taking stock in what we have done. So I do think that you know, more of that should be had. But I do think, you know, when you know, these gender bias circumstances, situations come up, I don't hesitate or shy away from, you know, having, you know, acknowledging it, you know, calling it out, or in a professional way and speaking on it. And I think, you know, oftentimes people are not aware that, you know, it is perceived or the delivery was as such. But I am, you know, all about having those conversations and highlighting those things and course correcting in real time.
Awesome, thank you. I'm gonna pose this question. I think it was Lizette and Lourdes who said that they came in together around the same time. Was it Lizette? Who was it?
It was Lizette and I.
Shanifa and I started on the
Okay,
same day.
Lizette and Shanifa. Okay. So if you had to be really transparent with us, give ladies some advice on joining the MTA. What's your highlight or otherwise?
I'll start, and I'm remiss. I too lived in the Bronx for 15 years. So while I'm not from the Bronx, I spent a lot of time there. That's where all my family lives. So shout out to the Bronx, but gotta shout out Washington Heights. I feel like no one's mentioned it, and I just felt the need to highlight it because that is where I am from. Anyway, sorry. So the highlights for me, truthfully, there are three really. One, like I said, it was a chance for me to learn an entirely new industry without leaving the public sector. And that's been both incredibly challenging. I'm still learning. I still, you know, I really enjoy learning, and that's just, again, part of my nature. But again, the people that my colleagues are like top notch. And I feel very fortunate to have really smart, dedicated powerhouses that I work with and interact every day. Like that to me has been by far like just the best highlight. The team is amazing, and you know, we're all working together with a lot of challenges, working through a lot of challenges. But I've just been very impressed with the caliber and quality of my colleagues, and so I love that.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I think the biggest challenge, truthfully, is that the transition of this organization from, you know, 5 separate agencies to a stronger headquarter, like the transformation piece and working our way through that has been just a bedeviling challenge. And that has been a source of you know, frustration, but also when we get our wins, we celebrate them. We're making our way through. You know, as the overachiever that I feel like I am, this has been a big challenge to try and pick away at getting through, both as an employee, right? Like, I don't know where to go to this. And these are, you know, these are departments that report to me. I'm still trying to figure stuff out too. I can't imagine folks that are not, you know, kind of know who to ask or trying to navigate it. And that's what we're trying to work on. So I think that that's been the challenge, but, you know, I think working together, we're making progress. And I really hope, you know, with every day that passes, that more progress is made.
Thank you so much. Before I go on to Shanifa, I had to chuckle because someone put in the chat, apparently to be in one of these beautiful positions that we're highlighting here, you have to be from the Bronx. And so I had to chuckle. That's so
Wait, I have to
funny.
get in I did a stint in the Bronx too, 2001 to
So
2007.
whoever doesn't live in the Bronx, pack your bags and start moving over. Shanifa, if you'll answer quickly, I have one more question and then I have one round for the entire panel.
Yeah, I mean, I think my career path definitely mirrors Lizette. You know, prior to coming to the MTA, I did 25 years at the city, Lizette, with my landlady. Um, but I do think, you know, in coming, you know, over to the MTA outside of it being huge, I mean, everything was that said. People were super welcoming, all ears and, you know, answering 1,000,001 of my questions and willing to sort of help and provide guidance. I think, you know, and again, every day learning, you know, new things because it is still huge. And even 2 years in, I know what I know, but I'm still let it stand to learn a lot. And I think, you know, one of the things that I found particularly challenging is like the MTA there's a certain language and, you know, like all these acronyms, I have a PhD in New York City government acronyms. This is totally new. And some of my colleagues who have started around the time that I started, we've actually started creating a book on like MTA language in an effort for us to sort of, you know, navigate with the hopes of, you know, later on passing that on to, you know, new employees and others that they might deem it helpful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And when you get the book together, please distribute. We appreciate it. Thank you. Paige, give us a word of advice for any woman aspiring to pursue a career at the MTA or in transportation.
So I guess two things. If you're here, so I think that this is all internal. So I will talk to sort of women internally who are looking to sort of move up and develop their career within transportation. It's be open to you know, doing different things. And I think I think Shanifa talked about this, that you know, as a woman, you tend to, I guess, question whether can you have a seat at the table? Can you be in the room? Can you do this? Recognize that you can. Raise your hand if you have something substantive to offer. You know, don't just raise your hand because you just want to be heard. But, you know, as you can tell from a lot of the women on this panel is, you know, we're prepared, we're overachievers, and you know, we like to learn. You know, bring that to the table with you when you are raising your hand. If you have an opportunity to do something different, don't hesitate. You know, from you know, just looking at my own career, having moved throughout the different agencies, it was just opportunities that came my way, and I'm like, okay, I can do this. You know, general counsel of MTA bus. I don't know a lot about buses, but I can do this. Um, be open to different opportunities and don't close yourself off to that. So.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And now, just one last, I guess, statement that we're looking for from each of you. And I'll start with Lourdes. Please finish this sentence, and this will be the same for everyone. This chapter of my life is called.
I would call it balance. I think I've really started this calendar year being very intentional about how I wanted this year to look like for me. And balance came back over and over again in my head. And by that, I mean being able to, work as hard as I always have worked and continue that work, but also give myself a little more grace, not be so hard on myself. Give myself a minute to rest and enjoy. A couple of weeks ago, I found I was just exhausted. I was just super, super tired, yawning all the time. I just couldn't, I wasn't sleeping well. And I looked at my calendar and I realized I didn't have enough. I had some time available. And so I ended up taking a personal day and I slept for like 4 hours. I slept all day. And I felt so much better after that. And that's not something I would have done in the past. I would have really tried to power through, really just said, nope, can't afford to take any time. And I was always the one that had like 1,000 leftover vacation and personal and sick days because I wasn't taking any time. And so for me, it is very much about balance, trying my best to have a reasonable work day, making sure that I am indulging in everything that I love, chocolate, travel, music, museums, and pursuing that as diligently as I pursued my career. So that's what I'm looking forward to this year.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Shanifa, this chapter of your life?
I would say this chapter of my life is about doing things with true intention. I think oftentimes we do things because of others' needs and wants. And I'm sort of in this place in life where I am doing things that I want to do, not, despite whether it's professional, or family, we always feel like we are obligated to, do things and that when you show up and you do something without, the best intention, you sort of have to power through it. So I'm very selectful and mindful of like how I spend my time, how I want to spend my time, so I can be, the best version of myself and those who I am with. We can like really, turn up and have fun versus me showing up and it's like, okay, on to the next. So that's what I would, report out on.
Thank you so much. I'm going to move to Anita. Anita, before you respond, Kathy, I'm also going to ask you to prepare yourself if you're still on the call.
I
Anita.
am, though I'm a little nervous. I didn't know I was going to get any questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll give you a few minutes. Anita, this chapter of your life is called. You're on mute.
I think thankful, grateful. I can definitely relate to balance because I think we all struggle with that from all of the discourse that you've heard. Everybody here probably has had times where you just are not focusing on yourself and health and balance. But right now, where I'm at, I think I'm just looking back, you're reflecting and you're saying, wow, I've really come through a lot. And I'm thankful for the family that's been supportive of me and helped me push through, the great friends. I'm just so blessed that I have such a sisterhood amongst women, but a lot of, brotherhood of people who are supportive of me as well. I'm thankful for this tremendous colleagues that I have the fortune to work with and joust with and just collaborate with. I mean, it's very easy to kind of get hard on yourself and be frustrated. with all the challenges that we're confronted with, both professionally and personally. But I really find I have to stop back and say, you know what? Life is good. And I'm thankful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Lizette, this chapter of your life?
Uh, this chapter in my life is called The Power Juggling Years. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a single mom to an almost 3-year-old. And some days I catch the balls, other days they hit me in the face and I can barely catch one. It's tough. And, I think any mother out there understands the struggle. But kind of navigating both worlds is I yearn for balance. It's just I've let that go. It's just not going to happen for a while. But when I get out of the house with clean pants on, I call it a win and keep it going. So
Excellent. Thank you so much. Don't you worry. Soon there'll be 14 telling you they're hanging out at Starbucks.
Yeah.
You'll be okay.
Okay, thanks.
And Paige, this chapter of your life.
So I sat here and thought about this, and sorry, Lisette, but this chapter of my life is called Empty Nesting. So you too will get there. I have 2 boys. One is 23 and the other one's 19. So my 19-year-old went off to college in September. So yes, thank you. And yeah, so empty nesting, and what does that mean? That I don't have, my kids are not at home. So my focus is now on me. And I think some of the women talked about this. And my husband, he's still there. So I have to include him too. But the focus is on me. Really being intentional about my health, making sure I'm exercising and taking some mental breaks, and traveling. I was blessed to have gone on 2 great trips already and planning more, and also just sort of continuing to build my career. And I'm always learning, so just continuing to do that. But yes, empty nesting, and it's great. And you'll
Thank you
get
so
there
much,
for those of
Paige.
you with young kids.
Thank you. So Kathy, you're revered and we always welcome everything that you have to share with us. So we absolutely would love to know this chapter of your life is called.
Okay, so before I say that, I just want to say that Brooklyn is also in the house. I'm from Brooklyn, so there you go. So I can't all be about the Bronx today. So I want to put in a plug for Brooklyn. So yesterday was the Oscars, right? So the big winner this year was Oppenheimer. The big winner last year was Everything Everywhere All at Once. So that's sort of what my chapter is: Everything Everywhere All at Once. I too am a mom. I'm an older mom, but my son is 10 going on 11, and is a handful in a lot of ways, a lot of good ways. So kind of running around, working on the railroad all the live long day, and then taking care of him when I get home. So it's a lot, but I too, Anita, am super grateful for all these blessings that I've been given, and do the best with what I got. I'm just very, very grateful.
Oh, that's amazing. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So what we'll do next is I'll turn it over to Robin and James, who will be looking at the questions in the chat and posing them.
That was great. Thank you, Janice. I've learned so much. I'm inspired. And I just want to give a shout out to the Bronx as a Bronx girl. Born and raised in the Bronx. So I'm so happy to see all of our Bronx people out here. So I'm going to start with a question from Juana Jimenez, who's also our events chair. And this is for anyone who wants to answer. As a leader, how do you stay mindful of who's at the table and who's missing? How can women support other women in their organizations? Does anyone want to tackle that one?
Well, I mean, I can say, sorry, Anita, I think, you know, Paige referenced being at the table and being, open to new opportunities. For me, it is very much about that. And it's also very much about inviting other women to the table, even if necessarily there's not a whole lot they can contribute. But just being in the room and hearing the discussion and hearing the tone and appropriate discussion, inappropriate discussion. How do you disagree without being disagreeable? How do you say no in a way that is responsive? So even just being in the room, I know I've learned so much by just sitting there and watching the dynamics and hearing what the discussion is, and everything from new terminology to new words to, oh, that's how you respond to that question. And so I'd say that it is very purposeful for me that whenever I'm in a room, I usually try to bring at least one other person in there with me, if for no other reason than we can gossip, you know, afterwards. But really just trying to bring someone along so that it becomes a teachable moment in both directions. So I'll ask them, how was that experience for you? What do you think? You know, what would you have done differently? How do you think that could have worked or not? And also just giving them an opportunity to have that experience, because that's so much, there's so much value to that I think is underestimated by folks.
Yeah,
I would,
echo
go
that
ahead,
as
Anita.
well. I'm sorry, Paige, did I step on? I was just gonna say I would echo that as well. I mean, I think part of that was done for me some years ago, where I had, you know, someone who would she would throw you into the meeting, you know, to say, well, what am I gonna say? I don't really know. No, go in, sit, listen, take notes, come back, ask questions. Sometimes it was just for that person who can make observations because they have a different vantage point because they don't know all the players and they may not know the topic, but they know what resonates with them. So depending on what the meeting is about, you know, you could invite someone else where they're getting visibility, but they're also providing you with information that they may not even know, picking their brains will give you access to. And I think all of us here, you know, you'll look around and you'll say someone on your team that may be considered quote unquote a junior member, but everyone here is prone to at any given time have somebody join the meeting to sit in so that they're gaining exposure and they're gaining knowledge. So it's very important.
Only quick thing that I would add to that is also allowing the person to lead. So bring the person, on many occasions, I would attend and actually let, you know, one of the other attorneys sort of lead the meeting and you know, manage it themselves. And I'm just there to listen and will kind of plug in where needed. And there are some meetings where thankfully I don't have to say anything at all because I allowed someone else to have that opportunity to you know, provide their expertise and their insight and lead a meeting. And I do that often.
Are there any other questions, James and
Uh, yes, there is a question. We got a question from Terrence to you, Lourdes. What do you feel is the biggest difference and the biggest similarity between working here at the MTA and the nonprofit sector?
I think, you know, the size, you know, the MTA as an enterprise is enormous. We have over 70,000 employees, and I don't know any nonprofit that is as large as that. And so that, and all of that it brings, right? The bureaucracy, the levels that you have to work through in order to get work done. The scope of the work that that the MTA touches, you know, we're in 15 counties. We service, you know, thousands and thousands of customers daily. So that was a very big adjustment for me coming from the nonprofit, a smaller nonprofit sector, to dealing with, you know, this kind of behemoth entity. The resources are very different. The MTA with its $1 billion annual budget, and I'm working at a small nonprofit with a $20 million budget, and you're more responsible for for the fundraising and making sure that you're making payroll and that you can pay the bills. So in that sense, those are probably the biggest differences. I'd say the similarity, at least for me, and the recurring theme is that in both places, my passion, which is service, right? It's service to our community is the same. It's just being serviced in different ways. In the nonprofit sector, there was certain level of work and it was very, very community focused, but still focused on working with communities of color, working on diversity, working on inclusion, working on providing services to lower income residents. And in that sense, it's very similar to what we're doing here at the MTA. So that was why for me, it was just a no-brainer to be able to make that transition, because the work still met my hunger of being able to provide for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I want to say again, thank you to all panelists on this Zoom call, and Kathy as well. It's now 1:26 p.m. We don't want to keep people over 1:30. So we want to say thank you, and the program has come to a close. Robin, would you like to provide some last closing remarks?
Yes, like you said, thank you to everyone for taking your time, the panelists. We know you have a hugely busy schedules, and this was very important to bring your knowledge to everyone out, everyone, the audience, to know about your experiences and how we can also use these experiences to shape our development. And this is thank you, thank you, thank you, panelists, Kathy Rinaldi, President Rinaldi. Thank you, Janice. Unfortunately, unfortunately, we can't get to all the questions.
So Robin, I know that you and James, we want to say thank you to you for just being so creative. We really appreciate you, Robin and James, for putting this program together. And so as we end, we just wanted to share a quote by Stephen Covey that says, "Your most important work is always ahead of you, never behind you." Ladies, begin. Thanks you tremendously for your time that you spent with us today. We acknowledge that your transparency, your dedication to the MTA has been and will continue to be monumental and motivational in more ways than you can imagine. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Janice, and thank you to you all again, and everyone have a good afternoon.
Thank you now.
Thank
Thanks,
you all. Be
everybody.
well.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.